Well, good morning and welcome. Welcome to our industry colleagues, to TasCOSS members and supporters that are joining us both here today in person and online. It's an absolute pleasure to be gathered with you today on the land of the Muwinina people of the Southeast Nation. And I pay my respects to elders past and present and to any Aboriginal people in the room today. I acknowledge that this land was never ceded and it always was and always will be Aboriginal land. So welcome. It's so great to see so many of you in the room today and online supporting the community services industry at our annual budget event. In particular, I'd like to welcome, representing the Tasmanian Government, the Minister for Community and Multicultural Affairs, the Honourable Madeleine Ogilvie MP, who we'll hear from shortly. I'd also like to extend our welcome to the many elected members of Parliament joining us today, and they're listed on the screen, as well as TasCOSS Board President Georgie Ibbott and fellow board members, valued TasCOSS Life members, supporters, and the TasCOSS team. We also have Paula Reek joining us here today, who I'm sure you all know is the incoming CEO of TasCOSS. Paula will be starting at TasCOSS on the 3rd of June, and the team will be in touch with opportunities for members to meet Paula once she starts. So today's briefing comes at a critical moment for Tasmania. Families are under enormous pressure from rising costs, and community services are experiencing unprecedented demand as more Tasmanians turn to them for support. In handing down yesterday's budget, the government framed its approach around two key ideas: building a strong economy and a caring community. And we agree that those things are inseparable. A strong economy depends on people having safe housing, good health, and access to support before they reach crisis. The Treasurer has described these as turbulent times. And turbulent times demand governments invest in preventing crises, not just responding to crises. However, this budget is characterised by cuts and job losses. 1,700 public sector jobs will be cut. That's 1,700 Tasmanian families losing their jobs amidst a cost of living crisis, where housing is unaffordable and the cost of food, energy and transport are all rising. These workers are being pushed into a labour market where 35,000 Tasmanians are already looking for more work or more hours, at a time when our state has the highest unemployment rate in the country and Treasury forecasts that conditions will worsen. The budget also includes $1.5 billion in cuts disguised as unidentified efficiencies across health, education, justice and community services, creating significant concern about the impact this will have on essential frontline services and our industry workforce's ability to support the more than 120,000 Tasmanians living in poverty or on inadequate incomes. We understand the need for budget repair, but it must be taken responsibly and sustainably. Relying primarily on spending cuts ignores Treasury's own advice and calls from leading economists to consider revenue-raising measures alongside expenditure restraint. By refusing to pursue revenue-raising measures, the government has missed an opportunity to support the long-term fiscal repair while maintaining investment in the services and supports that prevent crisis, strengthen communities, and improve equity. Now on to our analysis of the budget. And I won't delve too deeply into today's state finances in great detail today. Instead, I will invite you to the TasCOSS post-budget policy conversation with Professor Richard Eccleston and Dr. Robert Hortle from the Tasmanian Policy Exchange, and that's on next Tuesday. But what this slide does illustrate is that the budget's chars a challenge, and it does illustrate the budget challenge the government is addressing. Net debt is forecast to increase to $8.4 billion next financial year. peaking at $9.98 billion in 28-29. Interest payments on our debt will be $442 million next year, totaling $2.2 billion over the forward estimates. That's billions of dollars that are not available to invest in essential frontline community services and supporting Tasmanians in need. The budget again contained a gender budget statement, measuring the impact of government initiatives on gender inequality. A few measures show real progress, such as the gender pay gap and women on government boards. However, systemic inequities in labour force participation, leadership roles, the representation of women in politics, industry segregation and social housing numbers remain entrenched and are getting worse. For the gender budget statement to genuinely drive progress on equity, the government must go beyond analysis and demonstrate how gender impact assessments are shaping funding decisions, including efficiency measures, as well as embedding clear accountability measurable outcomes and targeted investments in initiatives proven to reduce inequality in participation, safety and employment. Now let's turn to what was announced in the budget and what this means for Tasmanians. The next few slides we will go through quickly, but we will send you the slide pack with our budget wrap-up this afternoon. Some of the key announcements we welcomed included the $20 million over 4 years for the preventive health strategy, the extension of free bus travel to 2027, and $35.5 million for Thriving Kids. More broadly, however, targeted cost of living relief for households was an absolute oversight in this budget, and the initiatives will see little impact on the ability of families to afford the rising cost of rent, bills, insurance and food. Our industry approached this budget with significant concern after repeated warnings about difficult decisions and short-term pain. Through the Coalition of Peaks Prioritise All Tasmanians campaign, we called on the government to protect community services from cuts and to commit to long-term funding certainty, because when services can't cope with demand, Tasmanians miss out. We are deeply concerned by projected reductions in community services output group expenditure over the forward estimates, with funding forecast to decline by 13.6% compared to last year's budget. And hopefully, Minister, you can shed some light on what will be cut. On face value, this raises serious concerns about the industry's future capacity to meet growing demand. If the government is serious about supporting frontline services, it must support the organisations delivering them, because a caring community cannot be built on short-term funding cycles and exhausted workforces. Importantly, we've also seen some positive progress, including the first phase of the 5-year funding contracts, movement towards a partnership agreement with the Coalition of Peaks, and a commitment to review current indexation rates. Given increasing workforce and operational costs across the industry, we're calling for this review to be brought forward and to deliver a transparent, evidence-based indexation formula that reflects the true cost of delivering community services. For the Coalition of Peaks, the long-term sustainability of our industry remains the #1 priority. The state of housing in Tasmania continues to deteriorate. Housing affordability is lower than ever. Rental stress is worsening, and our social housing waitlist continues to blow out, reaching a record 5,533 applicants. That represents over 9,000 Tasmanians. Housing is one of the clearest tests of whether this budget delivers both a strong economy and a caring community. A strong economy requires workers who can afford to live in the communities they work in. A caring community requires that everyone has a safe place to call home. We were looking to this budget to see a significant commitment to increasing the supply of social housing. But disappointingly, we saw more of the same. While we welcome announcements of new money for Gyra House and Macomb House, other announceables are half measures and won't shift the dial on housing affordability, such as the extension of the first homeowner grant at a reduced rate, a measure that many economists say actually increases house prices. After housing costs, energy is the largest household expense. As energy prices continue to rise, more Tasmanians are experiencing energy hardship. The number of Tasmanians in energy debt is now at a record high of 14,800 Tasmanian households that are behind on their energy bills. TasCOSS sought some modest funding for Knock to Stay Connected, and this is a program that's designed to prevent vulnerable households from being disconnected from electricity due to their inability to pay. Under this program, Tas Networks conducts a personal visit to a home to provide information on available support and options to keep the customer connected. And the program works, with more than 70% of visits preventing disconnection. But customers are charged for this support, an additional $116 plus GST for the visit, with higher fees applying if disconnection proceeds. We estimate Tas Networks has recouped more than $125,000 in fees in the first 2 years of the program, while at the same time, the government returns from its energy businesses totaled more than $450 million. Our budget request was modest in the context of government energy business revenue, but potentially life-changing for households under severe financial pressure. Charging vulnerable households for support at a time of crisis risks deepening the hardship the program is designed to prevent. Yet in the same budget, $16 million is provided to subsidise our major industrials from higher prices due to Project Marinus. At the end of last year, the Australian Digital Inclusion Index again confirmed Tasmania is the most digitally disadvantaged state or territory in the country. TasCOSS and others have consistently called for greater investment in digital skills and literacy. Our latest submission called the investment in digital ready for daily life to be doubled to $400,000 per year to help improve digital skills and literacy across Tasmania. Instead, that program has been scrapped, and Libraries Tasmania, a critical enabler of digital access and skills, has also received a funding cut in this budget. And as this blank slide shows, no new programs have been identified in the budget papers to support digital skills and literacy. We all know what's needed to improve digital inclusion. We need to lift Tasmania off the bottom of the ladder and deliver significant social and economic benefits. The government must make digital inclusion a genuine priority through clear targets and sustained investment to close the digital divide. Tasmania is facing a growing burden of chronic disease. We strongly support the government's 20-year preventive health strategy because prevention is not an optional extra. It's the most economically responsible investment that governments can make. We were looking to this budget to establish a dedicated prevention fund worth at least 5% of the health budget. According to this year's budget, that would have been an investment of $183 million. What we've seen instead is a modest first step of $5 million per year over the forward estimates for preventive health. We now need to see this investment grow and meaningfully engage community services in prevention and early intervention efforts. We acknowledge the budget includes investment in child safety reform, out-of-home care, and youth justice responses from the Commission of Inquiry. We also welcome continued investment in community service organisations supporting children, young people, and families across Tasmania. However, new and sustained investment in early intervention and prevention remains critical if we're serious about preventing harm before crisis occurs and delivering long-term change for children and young people. Whilst funding has been directed towards statutory and crisis responses, there appears to be less of a focus on the community-based supports that prevent children, young people and families reaching those systems in the first place. This raises important questions about the government's long-term commitment to prevention, early intervention and community-led reform. And on that note, I would now like to hand over to the Honourable Madeleine Ogilvie MP, Minister for Community and Multicultural Affairs. Welcome, Minister.
Good morning, everybody, and it's great to see such a full room and so many friendly faces in the room. Thank you for welcoming me here. Can you all hear okay? Is that adjustment there? That's good. All right, thank you so much for welcoming me here today for this TasCOSS 26-27 State Budget Briefing. And before I begin as well, I'd like to recognise the deep history and culture of our wonderful island by acknowledging and paying respects to all Tasmanian Aboriginal people, past and present custodians of the land upon which we are meeting today. I'd also like to acknowledge the CEO of TasCOSS, Adrienne Picone. Thank you so much. I believe this is your last day. Amazing. I just wanted to recognise your dedication to the organisation and the work that you have done and your support of community services across the state. It's really been quite a remarkable journey that you've been on, and we appreciate that. I'd like to welcome also incoming CEO and friend Paula Reid. Congratulations on your appointment, and we're really looking forward to working with you. I'd also like to acknowledge all of my fellow parliamentary colleagues here. I've been noticing everybody in the room. The list did go on the screen, so I will just officially acknowledge parliamentary colleagues from Labor, including Opposition Leader Josh Wheely, the Greens Leader Rosalie Woodruff, and our House and Legislative Council independent representatives through the room. It is really great to see so many familiar faces here today, and it was such a big day yesterday, and we started early this morning as well with the budget breakfast. Now, I acknowledge, of course, the uncertainty that the sector and we have all felt over the past few months and weeks during what has been a globally turbulent time as well. Tasmanian Government acknowledges the invaluable role the community services sector plays in keeping Tasmanians supported and connected. We will talk about digital inclusion during today. And I know we are all feeling cost of living pressures, and this is top of mind for your sector and for the people you support. Across government, we are investing $650 million in community organisations as part of the 26-27 state budget. Now, this is made up of funding for food relief, youth services, a wide array of health and mental health services, neighbourhood houses, of course, volunteers, incredibly important, our LGBTQI+ community, support for our multicultural communities, community transport, homelessness services, grants programs, and so much more. We know there's a strong level of community interest and engagement in the sustainability of the community services sector, and it's so important. We continue to work collaboratively with the sector to build stronger communities and enhance regions. And we recognise the importance of working in partnership with the sector to strengthen long-term sustainability. And I know we've all had a lot of good thinking and good conversations on what that will look like. The Department of Premier and Cabinet have been actively engaging with the Coalition of Community Services, PEAKS, on a range of key sector reforms and initiatives. And this engagement has been ongoing and I must say very collaborative, which we've appreciated, and characterised, I think, by a commitment to openness and transparency, particularly about the work that's underway, including the Community Services Funding Review and the development of a partnership agreement with industry. Through this engagement, our government is ensuring that the perspectives of the community services industry are informing key policy and funding decisions. And that's why I like to come to forums like this, particularly when, Adrienne, I think you've done the hard work of summarising the perspective of the sector with a budget that only just arrived yesterday. So thank you very much for that. And we're certainly here to listen as much as to engage. So we include shared discussions on improving funding certainty, transitioning, as you know, to longer-term funding arrangements, and strengthening governance and collaboration across the industry. DPAC's approach recognises the importance of building trust and maintaining clear communication with the sector, particularly in relation to complex and staged reform processes. Now, I'm going to embarrass Rosita. Please put your hand up. Let them know who you are. Rosita's in the room, and many of you know her, but she's in my office, and I do rely on her advice and judgment. Please be in touch with her as you need. Sorry, Rosita, they will all call you, which would be a good thing. All right. The state budget continues our commitment to supporting the community services industry and includes a focus on the needs of Tasmanians here and now, as well as supporting long-term improvements. So to run through some of the areas in which we are all working, and we are working together. On cost of living pressures, we know they are the biggest issue we're hearing every day. It's being felt right across Australia, and we know many household budgets are under strain. Our government is focused on easing these pressures and making life more affordable for Tasmanians by helping those in need. Price of fuel, we know the cost of fuel, and this impacts some of your organisations, and particularly food relief services and transport, what you need to do for your people. So we know the cost of fuel has been raising concerns, particularly around the state's fuel supply. However, our fuel supply remains secure. So I did want to just bring that message to you. We have regular deliveries continuing through the national supply chain as normal. And our government has also moved quickly to introduce, and in yesterday's budget to extend, free public transport across the state for 12 months. I think that's just a really practical step. Although as I left my house this morning, I did see a lot of people at the bus stop and it was very cold. So we might need to think about getting some seating into place. Hopefully it will go on for a long time, the free transport. So it's been very popular and it's good for helping with the cost of living. It's also good for our environment. As you know, I wear many hats. Minister for Environment is one of those. Less cars on the road is naturally a good thing, but I recognise, as a working mum, many of us drive for good reason. Food security remains of critical priority for our government. We responded to early concerns about cost of fuel pressures and announced a further $500,000 investment to support community food providers right across our state. Beyond this immediate support, we've made a $7.1 million investment over 4 years from the 25-26 budget to 28-29 to strengthen Tasmania's food resilience approach now and in the future. And this includes implementing a new food resilience strategy. I was incredibly proud of that. That's a good move. It's a strategic move, and we can work together to implement that. That looks at continuing essential food relief programs and investing in initiatives that build food resilience within local communities. And started on how much I love community gardens, but we'll save that for the next time we meet. Continuing investment in our school lunch program, now at 60 schools, upgrades to school kitchens and canteens, and the variety breakfast program. Concessions, and I saw we had a bit on about energy. I'm trying to roll through to address some of those issues. So in relation to energy concessions, through the energy concessions framework, the government provides targeted support to low-income and vulnerable households to assist with the cost of essential services like electricity. The concessions framework is generous and well targeted, with an estimated $235.4 million provided over the 26-27 budget and forward estimates, including the low-income annual electricity concession, the medical cooling or heating concession, and life support concessions. Further to this, the Energy Hardship Fund has increased by $150,000 per year for 4 years, bringing total annual funding to $500,000 through 28-29. In relation to financial support, supporting Tasmanians with cost of living pressures obviously is a key priority, as I have mentioned, and we're continuing our investment in the no interest loan scheme, NILS, as we know and love it, which is a strong example of this commitment. Now, NILS makes a real and practical difference by giving low-income Tasmanians access to safe, affordable options to purchase essential household goods and services. The success of this program speaks for itself, with 97% of loans fully repaid. 97% is a huge figure, helping people avoid the debt cycles often associated with payday lenders, rent-to-buy schemes, and other high-risk financial products. Further to this, we support Anglicare to provide free statewide financial counselling, helping Tasmanians regain financial stability. And I did have a meeting with Anglicare. I was just blown away by the work that they are doing in relation to that, and it's a great credit to them. Moving to some of the broader matters that we have raised this morning, we know that well-being in the state is of critical importance, and that is why in 2023 we commenced the Community Services Funding Review, supported by a cross-agency steering committee and a working group to drive a coordinated whole-of-government approach to deliver three key priorities. 1, reviewing indexation. 2, progressing longer-term funding provision. And 3, delivering an outcomes framework. Excuse me. This is complex work, as those who've been engaged with it will know, with hundreds of funding agreements across government. But meaningful progress has been made. The key areas of work captured under the review are intrinsically linked. And through the cross-agency approach, we are ensuring that work is not progressing in isolation, but that has been adding to complexity. We will work through that together. We are working collaboratively to ensure the changes are practical, that they are coordinated, and support a strong future for the community services sector. And the work is being strengthened by a commitment to working in partnership, I hope you're feeling that, with the industry, particularly through our ongoing engagement with the Coalition of Community Services, PEAKS, whose insights actually brought this work to fruition, and we're very grateful for that. Now, I know indexation is of great interest, so we'll touch on that. In 24-25, there's a significant step forward in establishing a consistent approach with our community to a 12.5% indexation over 4 years for the industry. We will review the level of indexation for community services organisations to provide ongoing certainty before the conclusion of this commitment in 27-28. In relation to longer-term agreements, in 2025, we began transitioning peak body funding to longer-term agreements under Stage 1, providing greater certainty for organisations and their workforces. And in 2026, we have commenced Stage 2 of this work, building on the progress, transitioning more recurrent funding to longer-term agreements. And I know that's something we all want. It might be a bit boring of me to say this, but the work, it is complex, it is ongoing, and I know you're all fully engaged. And I thank you for that. Please continue to work with us. Considering the scale and diversity of current funding arrangements, the work is being progressed in tranches, as you're aware, with the first tranche under Stage 2 to be provided to Cabinet for consideration later this year. So it's hot off the press. Outcomes framework. Recognising longer-term funding requires a strategic and coordinated approach. We're committed to working with the industry to develop an outcomes framework. Initial consultation has commenced on that in relation to the scope of that framework, including discussions with the coalition of the peaks and government agencies. We're really looking forward to continuing that important work as well. I'd like to touch on the Community Services Industry Plan. Now, we know, as you've heard me speak this morning, it's about partnership, it's about collaboration, it's about operating in a complex environment where we may have, from the government side, many different portfolios engaged, and I'll turn a little to that later in the paper. But our Community Services Industry Plan 21 to 2031 reflects our long-standing collaboration with the sector, providing a shared framework for industry development and a stronger future workforce. A governance review was undertaken to ensure the plan remains relevant, effective and fit for purpose, and we're working closely with TasCOSS and the Coalition of Community Service Peaks to implement the review's recommendations. In line with that review, that governance review, which is very important, a key priority for 2026 is progressing the development of a formal partnership agreement between government and the community services industry. setting clear expectations, shared responsibilities, and a more consistent approach to working together. This work is being progressed collaboratively by the Department of Premier Cabinet. Thank you so much. In the room, I saw you. Yes, there you are. Keep up the good work. Industry representatives and relevant agencies. I noticed there was a bit on the screens before about the SHADS award review, so I'll touch on that. We're aware that the Fair Work Commission is currently finalising a major review of the Social, Community, Home Care and Disability Services Industry Award 2010, or SHADS, to address gender-based undervaluation, with a final decision expected in 2026. We're aware that the final decision by the Fair Work Commission is likely to include a wage adjustment, which will impact the community services sector, particularly regarding positions not previously defined or included within the award. Our government will continue to monitor the SHADS award review and consider appropriate measures as further information becomes available. We will work with you. Turning to specific organisations and program funding very quickly, I'll touch on gambling support. Our gambling support program takes a comprehensive whole of government approach to respond to Tasmanian gambling trends and the specific needs of local communities. In 2025-26, 5.3 million was provided through our Community Support Fund for the program to deliver non-regulatory gambling harm reduction, prevention and support initiatives, including support services for people impacted by gambling and community education and awareness. Now, this is my favourite area. You knew I was going to go on digital inclusion, of course. But look, as the Minister also for Innovation, Science and the Digital Economy, and a veteran of 30 years of the telecommunications sector, I am keenly aware of our need to improve digital inclusion. Not just digital inclusion, but connectivity as well. So we have those two layers which are a challenge for our island state. So there are a few things I'd like to point to, whilst also saying we need to do more, clearly, very aware of that. So firstly, we want everybody to be able to fully participate in everyday and daily life. So that's why, as part of our 100-day plan, the government will release a digital inclusion framework and a set of targeted priorities by 19 June. Now, this is not new work in a context of a vacuum. We are already working as a government on digital inclusion initiatives, both within our departments, within our education systems, across small business. And I have the great joy of trying to, they won't mind me saying this, beat up Telstra quite often on these inclusion and connection issues. So there is a lot of work going on. That sits mostly in my digital portfolio. But this framework, which I think will be helpful, will build on the foundations of the document we refer to as Digital Tasmania. That is a policy that I've released through my digital and science portfolio, which includes what we're doing in digital inclusion. So I point you towards that. Very happy to do more work with you specifically there. And though it's not in my notes here, I do also want to just very briefly touch on the work that we've been doing with prisons, particularly Risdon Prison, and recognising that digital inclusion doesn't stop when you're doing a custodial sentence, and it is important that people who move through that system are part of this thinking. And so one of the things that I did, in fact, it was a bit of a passion project, was ensure that Risdon was refit to enable more digital learning and use at that site. Now, this is something I hope to speak with the sector more broadly as we bring that forward. Watch out, Paul, I'm coming your way. The government is also supporting the LGBTIQA+ community, and last November I had the great pleasure of releasing Our Inclusive Island, which is Tasmania's Strategy 2530. And I feel, and I think we all agree, it's setting a clear whole of government direction to improve lives. So we work closely with Equality Tasmania and working it out on the strategy, and it will be delivered through a 5-year action plan. We're looking forward to releasing that later this year, and will be supported by funding already allocated through the 25-26 state budget. Very quickly on men's sheds, wow, what a network and the strength of those that they are thriving. Look, we've put $175,000 into grants programs with Men's Shed since 24-25, an additional $400,000 in peak body funding to the Tasmanian Men's Shed Association over 3 years. And the successful recipients of those grants were informed yesterday. So I think this is a positive step. Now, I had the great pleasure of speaking to some of the organisations who were in the lockup yesterday, particularly in relation to concerns they might have, and I'll just touch on a couple of organisations here. Volunteering Tasmania, really pleased to stand with Volunteering Tasmania to launch the strategy Valuing Our Volunteers. Tasmania's volunteering strategy sets out a clear direction for the future. Where would we be without volunteers? We're all volunteers. You know, whether you coach the netball or whether you're volunteering on an arts board or you're helping somebody in your local community, I think it's a very Tasmanian thing to do. I'm very supportive of volunteers. So in 25-26, we committed $300,000 for 2 years to support implementation of the strategy and commence subsidisation of the registration to work with vulnerable people pilot. We waived the registration for volunteers, which just seems only fair. You're volunteering your time, your energy, you're putting yourself out there. And it's difficult for people if we put a barrier in place that's a small amount of money for us, but actually might prevent somebody from fully engaging in their community. So I'm very supportive of that. Similarly, we recognise the vital contribution of our more than 87,000 unpaid carers. We've doubled Carers Week funding to $40,000 per year. We provide ongoing support and invested $209,000 through the 25-26 state budget to develop the next Carers Action Plan, supported by a further $10,000 per year to oversee its implementation through the Minister's Carer Advisory Council. I just want to say on a personal note about that council, I don't know that I've ever had such a profound experience as I had sitting in my first 2 meetings, hearing these stories, the real life stories and experiences of people in that room. It was profound. And if anybody needs to be convinced about why carers are important, just listening to those real life stories really is very moving. So you're hearing my support there as well. Now, we're working closely with Carers Tasmania, carers across the state on an action plan, and we want to ensure it reflects those lived experiences and communities' priorities. Now, yesterday at the budget lockup, a couple of organisations talked about their concern about project funding. I will work with you. I will work with you all to do what I can to make sure that we are transitioning and smoothing and bridging where we need to. That is work that we will do as we go forward. I've pointed to Rosita. You know who she is now. So come talk to us if you have specific issues. In relation to multicultural affairs, this is the first time, I believe, in Tasmania we have had an appointed Ministry for Multicultural Affairs. I'm absolutely honoured to be in this role. We want, as you do, a harmonious, inclusive island where we celebrate multiculturalism, where we enjoy the benefits of people coming from elsewhere, bringing their skills and cultures and the fun of that to Tasmania. I also, on a sadder note, want to acknowledge the horrific events at Bondi late last year, which are absolutely appalling. And just note that we as a government are participating in the Joint Royal Commission on Anti-Semitism and Social Cohesion. Since 24-25, we put more than $2.5 million into support culturally and linguistically diverse communities, including $190,000 for the action plan, multicultural festivals. We just announced more money there. Establishment of the Ministerial Multicultural Action Plan, and $130,000 to MCOT to deliver anti-racism and cultural safety resources. As Arts Minister, one of my many other hats, I'm really thrilled to see a great new wave of arts engagement coming through our multicultural communities as well. I see great people coming from our tech sector and arriving here. Whenever I speak to a new immigrant to Tasmania, I say, oh, you're a new Tasmanian. Don't worry about Australia. You're here with us. And I say, you know, what's your background and what you're interested in doing? You would be amazed. Maybe you wouldn't be because you're in the sector, but the skills they bring. We've got masters in IT through to nursing and medical. We've got people who have skills in language and music. When we go and see those festivals, the message coming from our multicultural communities is, we want to be good Tasmanians. Let's all work together. And Tasmania is a small place where we can do that. And I think we do it better here, not perfect, but better here than we do elsewhere across the nation. So we've got concerns from neighbourhood houses, totally respect and agree with a number of the concerns, but I'm a big fan of neighbourhood houses as well. I love the way each one is located in its specific community and it responds to its local context. This is a wonderful thing. Neighbourhood houses did raise with us concerns about rising delivery costs. So the state budget 26-27 brings forward 2.33 million in community connector program funding. Is David O'Byrne in the room? Oh no, he's just got his call out. A strong get him back. Strong advocate. If you get him back, I'll say it again. Strong advocate. Lost him? Strong advocate. I really appreciate that. I know everybody in this room is. I don't want to upset any of my other parliamentary colleagues. We all have neighbourhood houses in our areas, just that David specifically was advocating on that piece. So more than doubling investment in the program to 4.4 million. We've got Hatch coming online. They're joining the neighbourhood house families. Fantastic. And here's a good number, which there will never be enough. But let me say the number. We've committed more than 96 million to support the neighbourhood house network from 2021. That's the number we've been investing. Now, the challenge we've got, of course, it's never enough because the need is so great. So what we're going to do is the neighbourhood house needs analysis. I'm very grateful that everybody is coming on that journey. It is intended to be collaborative so that we can work out how we can do more and better with what we've got to work with, and to come to the table with good ideas, emerging issues, future challenges, what we could do, new ideas for programs and projects. So that's underway. The consultation has started. Please get engaged. Finally, just to really wrap it up, because I think probably you might want some time for questions, hopefully, or not, I could escape, who knows. So in housing, just to touch on that, 66 million into new and continued funding for housing services. Again, never enough. 1.2 million to operate Emily House, which is St Vincent de Paul in the room somewhere. $100,000 to support worker resourcing and crisis accommodation at Gyra House, so important. 200,000 to support worker resourcing and crisis accommodation services at Macomb House, which is Salvation Army, and 18.2 million in recurrent annual funding for Housing Connect services. Many of these things don't sit within my portfolios, but I am always happy. You can send me in to advocate for the sector with other ministers, and sometimes it can be a bit of a superpower. So I see Paula looking at me going, oh yeah, she's written that down. Okay, so, but as you would know, taking the biggest slice of the state budget is health. We have got mental health, a vast array of mental health facilities programs, more than 15 billion over the forward estimates in the health sector, 20-year preventative health strategy with 20 million allocated into that. So that's a little bit about how we get ahead of the curve, particularly around mental health and homelessness. It is our government's long, bold term plan to place prevention at the heart of our health system and communities. Again, even though it's not my portfolio, I'm very happy. I work well with Bridget, very happy to lobby her when you have ideas and you want to send us in. And I have been advised that the final strategy on that will be released next month, with the first action plan to commence 1st of July. COTA, 400,000 for Seniors Month and digital inclusion. This is a good thing. Go to COTA, who I know and love over many years. The work they do with digital inclusion is amazing. Again, I would just underscore Any concerns with project funding? I know there are concerns. Please bring them forward. I will work with you. 100,000 for elder abuse, 271,000 for the Older Tasmanians Action Plan implementation. Now, thank you to everybody. I hope you've taken all your notes. I know you'll hold me to account, and our government. TasCOSS team, amazing. Paula, again, welcome. But importantly, another embarrassing moment for Deepak. Corinna and Nolene, oh, they've fled the room because they knew this was coming. Just wanted to say what a great job they have done. They want to work with you. We are with you. I've seen nods in the room. They are good people. You have Rosita here to help. And I wish I could fix everything with a magic wand. But in the meantime, we will have to continue to work together. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Minister.
It's long. Sorry.
Well, we're now going to open the Q&A session. If you have a question for Minister Ogilvie, we'll ask you to raise your hand, and it'd be great if you could say your name and the organisation you represent, and Lucinda will come over with the microphone. Just a reminder that this question time is actually for TasCOSS members or supporters, and elected officials get their own opportunity to ask questions in Parliament.
They sure do.
So if they could just hold them to them.
I'm happy to talk to everybody. And look, I should just say, if it's not my ministerial area, I will do my best, but, you know, take it as we go.
I know I could see that somebody put their hand up quite quickly, but I just wanted to touch on just a couple of things before we go to the first question. It was really great to hear you talk about digital inclusion, and I think what I heard you say was that there'll be a digital inclusion digital inclusion framework coming out on the 19th of June.
Yeah. Yes.
And I really
Love
hope
to talk
that
about
the community services industry are a key stakeholder in
Yep.
that, and obviously
Yep.
key in terms of implementation. So I really hope that you see us as a partner.
Oh, more than that.
Delivering on that.
I think, Adrian, you kicked off the heat on this a number of years ago with me, and I'm very, very pleased to welcome everybody. And I need your help, because you have the connection with the people who need assistance in your sector. Yeah. So yes.
Also really pleased to hear you talk about indexation, because that is still a concern for this whole industry, and particularly with now the fuel shortage. I think it's making it clearer more than ever about the inadequate indexation that's applied to community service organisations, and that we really need a formula, not just a number. So pleased to hear you talk about that. But the one thing I just wanted to touch on, and it was something I heard a lot yesterday in the budget lockup, was what we saw over the forward estimates in terms of the community services output group expenditure. So what we saw was 13.6% decrease over the forwards for community services. There was a lot of questions about what does that actually mean, and we'd just love it if you had any detail about what that actually does mean in terms of what we'll actually be cutting.
So I picked that up too. So I did try and get a little bit of advice on this. I don't think this is a new thing. It was in the last budget as well. I'm just looking to Rosita to make sure I'm saying the right things. But it is a reflection of the ending of election commissions, project-based commitments. So this is why I'm leaning into the question around projects in particular. I come from the corporate sector. I know projects are important, and when you're trying to fund them, stopping them mid-range is, going to be difficult. So what I would say is that trajectory was in last year as well. But on the projects part specifically, we're listening. I want to help. I'm with you. Let's work together on that. And more broadly, very happy to work on next year's budget, which will be barreling around the corner before we know it. I think it's also worth noting that it's been a really unusual year or two in state government and parliament, with snap elections, an interim budget, and now a full budget, and also a somewhat parlous economic situation. Now, being prudent with the budget doesn't mean that we stop doing all the good things that we want to do. So my hope is that I will be a really strong and good advocate for the people in this room. Those I've been able to meet with so far hopefully will know at least that I will fight for you, for TasCOSS and each individual organisation. But I really think we are stronger together, and that you know what people want even better than I do. I need to be your voice at the table. So that's the approach I'm going to try and take, and I'm very happy to hear the good, the bad, the happy, the sad at any time.
As you would have heard, Minister, during the campaign, that investing now in early intervention and prevention programs will save money later on. So
Yes,
it's a prudent investment.
I think Bridget agrees with you as well, which is great, helpful news.
Fantastic. Okay. So over to the question.
Oh, hi. Thank you, Madeline. I'm Dr. Catherine Maltz.
Sorry, a bit hard to hear you.
Sorry.
Yeah, speak loud.
Dr. Catherine Maltz, Senior Medical Officer at Family Planning Tasmania. I'm also a board member at
Yep. Great.
Budgets. Doing.
Oh, that's better. There you go. Thank you.
What is your government and this budget doing for men's violence against women and children? Just in the last week, we have had 5 women and 2 children murdered. 2 of those women were local Tasmanian women. Yeah.
Well, you just make me want to cry.
Yeah,
and I have to take a breath.
Yeah.
So Jane Howlett is the Minister for Women and the Prevention of Family Violence. But I, of course, am a woman and I have some views. And my views are, if everybody could stop perpetrating violence against anybody at all times, start there. Secondly, we do have a suite of programs to assist women fleeing family violence.
Yeah, that's great, but we need to be preventing this in the first place.
Yep. So I'm happy to just make a bit of a statement, and then we can have a to-and-fro if that suits.
Maybe a conversation after the.
Yeah, in depth, absolutely. And because I'm not the current minister, I just have to reflect on my work previously. One thing we've done is put the women's budget statement into place. I did that. And we did that so that we could actually pick up through each of our portfolio areas what needs to be done. I've also been a defence lawyer and worked in the criminal area over many, many years, and I have seen a lot. I've also been the Minister for Corrections, many trips to Risdon. And at Risdon, it's about 89% men and a fewer number of women. And look, I'm really going to just be very general, characterising the reason the women are there is generally having been involved in circumstances relating to criminal activity, boyfriends, husbands, etc. The work that we did, particularly in relation to the supervision of, and I'm sorry boys, I'm going to talk about the men for a moment, the supervision and monitoring of men, both those who are on remand or on probation or release, particularly around electronic monitoring, is sophisticated and intelligent. And down in the city through the community corrections section, and anybody, probably you guys have already been there, but if you have time and you would like to go and see how it works, on the walls, big screens, ankle bracelets on people who are supposed to stay away from other people, and we know exactly where they are at all times. So that's once we know there's a problem. The prevention piece, I don't have a magic answer to that. That is Jane Hallett's area. But I can't believe that we're still, what are we now, 2026, and we are still dealing with this issue. And as a mother of daughters, we have just got to deal with it. So happy to have the deep dive with you after.
Thanks for raising that. It's really important.
Yeah, really important.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Another question? Yes. Jeremy.
Good morning, Minister. Jeremy Pettit with Uniting. We recognise that a lot of the frontline service funding has been maintained in this budget.
Yeah.
But there is very little or no new funding for community-based alcohol and other drug treatment and rehabilitation supports. So my question is, how does the government propose to address the increasing need of these supports, especially amongst young people, with no additional funding?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for recognising about the maintenance of the overall support. I've worked really hard might not feel like it, but really hard to make sure that we did secure that. So I could breathe out a little bit. But I agree with you about the need in the community. And we're thinking about this particular issue, dealing with the alcohol and drug abuse problem is essential. So I think you see it, globally as a sector, you see it before we know about it, before it hits government challenges. So we do have the budget coming up, budget prep for next year. I think this might be a conversation around programs and projects in particular. But you've got the sense of it this morning. It's about needs analysis. What's happening? How do we show what the needs are? I can think of things that groups that I've worked with on particular projects in the past around that correction space, where the need was really, really evident and was able to be proved. In relation to drugs and alcohol, I think the health budget, which is really enormous, is a place in which programs and projects can be done. And so what I'd like to suggest is, if you have a specific in mind, and I sort of feel that you might, I'm really happy to have dialogue with you and Bridget, who is a health minister as well, to talk about that. I think that's the way to deal with that one. Okay.
Thanks, Jeremy. Oh, we have a question online that Cameron will read.
Yeah, I've got a question here from Sam Fox from Carers Tas, who says, yesterday's budget was branded as, by the Treasurer as delivering a strong economy and a caring community, as we heard before. But this caring community, in quotes, budget leaves Tasmania's 87,000 carers behind. As you know, Tasmania's carers will shoulder the consequences of federal NDIS reforms and changes across the aged care system, will bear the brunt of efficiency savings, in quotes, across government in the years ahead. How will government support Tasmania's carers when the Carer Action Plan currently under development has been allocated little or no funding to implement?
Thank you. And thank you, Sam. I did have the great pleasure of chatting with Sam at the budget lockup yesterday. I hope I got that right. As I've said, I am deeply personally invested in the carers issue. The Carers Action Plan is amazing. We have a group of people on that advisory board who are incredible, particularly with their lived experience. And again, it sort of makes me really quite emotional when I think about the stories that have been told. So as we build the Carers Action Plan, time passes, the new budget comes into swing. I will fight for budget measures for everybody, and I specifically will fight for money to support the action plan. That's work that needs to be done, but I think we have to all have shoulders to the wheel. I need your support so that I can best represent you at the tables I'm at to get the funding. So my commitment is to do all I can to help, but I couldn't agree more about the Carers Action Plan. It's brilliant.
It is, and I think what I heard carers say yesterday in the lockup, that 10,000 per year for implementation is really not enough. Very far.
No, totally agree.
And that we really need. It's great having strategies, but then the implementation is really the complex.
Yes, we don't want to sit on a shelf. We want to actually have action.
Yeah, great, Bridget.
Thank you, Bridget Wilkinson, Coda Tasmania. I'm going to take my ageing hat off and just give a general question to you more broadly around community services. So you mentioned the SHADS review. We know we don't have a formula for indexation that is adequate. We have higher costs of operating. We have boards that are looking at deficit budgets. And quite often, a lot of those election commitments that you talk about that are now dwindling are what's actually kept us going and what's been a very inadequate base funding. I'm really, and a lot of other people, very concerned about what that might mean for us with the SHADS review. We absolutely wholeheartedly support the need to review that. What thinking and planning are you doing now as a government to look at what you're going to do to support us? Because we are going to, again, I think, be left to figure out for ourselves with the same pot of money, how we're going to continue to meet need with all these rising costs and especially with the SHADS review coming up. If you could comment on that, please.
Yes, thank you, of course. So, and I think I did mention in the speech that the indexation issue, certainly we're focused on that and totally appreciate your argument and the actual practical problem that there is. And so I understand the overarching funding is good, project funding, which is dwindling. And from our perspective, I guess we put those those election commitments or annually based commitment project funds into place and then expect the project will end. But what happens is the projects are generally successful and they show that there's a need. So it comes back to this question of needs and what we can do with what we've got. So needs analysis is important. We're certainly watching very closely what's happening with additional costs coming through the SHADS process. And I think I've said in the speech already that we will look at that indexation issue. I really appreciate what you're saying. And I should say also, this is not the only sector that is challenged by this. I have, so I've got all these really interesting portfolios, but they all have this exact problem. So I'm hoping that our longer term contracts, that a closer working relationship between all of us and government, that the great team in DPAC who are fully engaged, we will be able to work through this together. But what I can say is you have my commitment to fight for you at the table. And that is what I think you will want your minister to do. I might not be able to solve all problems today. I might not even know what all the problems are today, but my door is open and I will take it to the Treasurer, as you know I would, particularly heading into the next budget cycle. So aware, can't solve it by making a statement today, but thank you. I think you've underscored it beautifully.
Can I just add to Bridget's question around the SHADS award? Because I think that is creating a lot of uncertainty.
I can see the nodding.
Across the industry, and there's a lot of unknowns.
Yes.
Probably it will increase people's salary budgets.
Yes,
so
absolutely.
We need to find that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Previously, I think back in 2012 it was when the Equal Remuneration Order was introduced, ERO was introduced.
Yeah.
The federal government and the state government, Tasmanian state government at the time, topped up community services budget. So
I think that brings the feds to the party. So
definitely be a question I suspect coming from the Coalition of Peaks in future meetings about what the state government might be able to do.
Yeah, fantastic. And look, I'm really open to finding solutions to that. So let's get it on the agenda. Coalition of Peaks might already be on the agenda. My apologies. And if we need to do a surgical strike on it to speed things up from our perspective, we can do that.
Thank you. Question here at the front.
Hi. Sorry, I'm quite nervous.
Don't be nervous.
I have a lot to say. I'm here. I'm on the board of a neighbourhood house, so we're also quite concerned about the SHADS award. I currently work in youth services and in the field of young people using violence at home, with a background of family violence in their life. I'm a lived experience survivor of family violence and homelessness due to that. I've also worked in Tasmania in the housing sector.
Okay.
So a number of the things that you're so deeply moved around, which we all are, and I thank the doctor for raising it in the first place, and my thoughts go to the families that are affected by this. Firstly, in terms of disability housing, we know that there's a high number of people who need specialist housing on the highest need of housing, but there's just no houses to put them in. And if somebody has a family member who becomes ill or disabled, there's no houses that we can transfer them to, so they're living in really complicated situations. And then in addition to that, the rapid rehousing system is not rapid in any way, shape or form. There's not enough. There's not enough shelter places. Most of them are currently full. I've already raised the issue with the Premier of there's not enough shelters that take parents with or women with teenage boys. And I can't see a way that the budget now or in the future is addressing the issues that women are choosing to stay in violent relationships because the only other option is living in their car. But then if they report that they're living in their car to try and get a step up on the housing ladder, they then have to make a child safety referral to the advice and referral line because the children are at risk.
Sarah, what was that last bit?
If you go to Housing Connect and you make a disclosure that you're living in your car in the hope that you might get higher up on the list, which we know I think is about 2,000 people on that high needs list. a referral has to be made to the advice and referral line because the children are at risk living in a car. So for women who are trying to choose safety, but they can't because they have to choose homelessness instead, I don't see anything in the budget. I went to a conversation with the Men's Resource Tasmania just last week. I was one of 3 women. I personally, I'm a member of the Alliance. I can't do any more. And a lot of the women who are advocating a great personal toll, we can't do any more. We need you to do more. I've been in touch with the Housing Minister. Quite frankly, I was fobbed off. I wrote him a letter saying so. I'm waiting for a response.
Oh, I'm feeling your energy.
My energy is, it's pain. And it's frustration and it's heartbreak. And I think there's a lot of women in this room who will be feeling the same. We need help. And when is it going to come and how is it going to come? Because we're all burnt out, we're all exhausted. And if we're not feeling it ourselves personally, we're feeling it for our clients and for our services.
Absolutely.
So over to you, I guess.
So well said. Beautifully spoken, and you don't need to be nervous. You articulated that incredibly well. Can I just start with a moment of empathy and my lived experience, nowhere near the same as yours, but I did have a scenario where I was aware of 3 young girls, grade 12s, trying to study, all couch surfing / homeless, difficult scenario, and known to my family. And I did myself try to work through the housing system. So just as me, not as a MP, not, you know. And it was incredibly difficult to navigate. There were well-meaning and lovely people on the end of every phone. But at the end of the day, there just didn't seem to be houses. And so what could I do? What could I do? I knew I had these 3 lovely young women who all had different reasons for not being at home. So I moved them in with me. They lived with me for 3 months. So that's where I got to. And that's just a personal anecdote. It's very real. So I think when you say over to me, I agree with you. Thank you. But I also say over to us. You will all know more about what the answer should be than me being very much new to this conversation. I'll just finish this and I'll come to you. New to this conversation. But I do wonder whether an approach might be, sorry, Paula, I'm going to look at you, but maybe we need a specific project on this that we work with TasCOSS or others on. It cuts across both, well, sort of my area because we're general funding, but the women's funding, health funding, housing funding. And what I've discovered in government is that any time a problem goes across boundaries, it's really hard to coordinate it. But we've found ways to do it. So I've had some successes. Sorry, I'm going all businessy about this, but this is how you get to the answer. And so maybe what we need within government, and I would be happy to lead this if people want this, something we can talk about, is an internal project that does bring the people from the different areas together to address specific issues. Now, we can use those mechanisms. I think after budget is a time where we have a moment to work out how to implement things. I think that would be my most practical answer. And can I put it to the sector to think about that? If that is something you would like, I'd be very happy to step up. But you did want to say something else. Do you want to?
So during my time in the housing role, we had people who were living with families and friends who were in 2-bedroom houses, supporting people who had escaped the violence. Families of 5 who had taken on families of another 3 or 4.
Yep, do what you got to do. Yeah.
But that means there might be a family of 8 living in a 2-bed house. And then that, if they're in a Homes TAS property, that breaks the rules of their contract. So then they're at risk of being evicted.
Yep.
So it's not quite as simple. And I respect what you're saying, but it's not quite as simple as us doing our bit, because we're already doing our bit.
No, please don't.
I think Michelle, who's the president of Neighbourhood House
So,
Tasmania, would like to
I
add
just
to
want to
that.
respond to that, because I don't want any sense that I'm saying you guys should fix everything. What I'm saying is, please inform me so I can help you. And what I can do within government is coordinate a response across multiple boundaries. So I don't want any sense of me saying it's your problem. We are forming the new Housing Tasmania group with an entire department to work on this. And you mentioned your comment before. But what I can do is go in and lobby. So again, we've got housing, we've got health, we've got all these other areas that need to come together with a team to fix it. That's my offer, but I need you to help me to do that. So it's got to be together. Thank you. Would love that. Thank you. Yep.
Thanks, Minister. My name is Michelle Ewington. I'm here representing the Neighbourhood House Network. Currently, I'm the board president. I just wanted to take a moment hearing your response to the previous comment. In terms of the collective wisdom in this room, the experience, the various advocacy that goes on, the frustrations around a workforce potentially being unsafe, boards making budget decisions around investing in their own savings to be able to keep doors open. And I'm talking across the sector here.
Yeah, not just neighbourhood houses.
And I think what we're then seeing is the pressures on community result in more demand on those services. I have a concern about the resilience of our workforce and the capacity for our people to continue to do the work that supports the community members. I also think there's a concern and something I don't quite understand from the budget information handed down around the efficiencies which will come from cuts through departments. So the critical role that you've already acknowledged, Nolene and Corinne and the team.
Albert, I couldn't see them before.
The critical
fled, but no.
The critical work that their team does to just support such a large sector.
Yep.
I just don't understand how, if those efficiencies reduce their resources, how we as community services will have the supports that we need. I'm sure there are many people in this room that can talk to late contracts, inability to get report information through, various other aspects of that. And that I don't think is a reflection on the commitment and effort of the team. It is a resourcing or an efficiency process that is not going to be saved by simply removing people from the department. And if we lose these wonderful people in the sector, Tasmanians suffer, our organisations fold, and a project is going to take resources from all those other things to just talk about what we already are talking about. So I just wanted to express my
thank you.
coverage of that.
Yeah.
It's not even a
Thank you.
question.
Thank you. I think there's a lot of love for the department, which is great. And look, I just wanted to thank you so much for saying all of that. I know you and I have had chats about neighbourhood houses and issues, particularly around those. I'm a big fan of our government workforce. Everybody is valued and does a good job. I do understand that post-COVID, challenges with numbers, etc. But I feel like I work with a really great team of people. I think let's see where things go. There is a restructure happening right now, which does affect a number of my areas, but I think the community services piece is good. And poor old Rosita up the front here, she's a marvel, and she advises me directly. Let's see where that goes, but it needs to be I have my ears open, and an open dialogue between us about not just what the challenges are to bring forward, but also for us, we have challenges too about how we manage with what we've got to try and support you all. I'll sort of wrap that up by saying, of course, that I very much see my job as being an advocate for your sector. I've done, I think, a fairly good job with the tech sector. If I can apply some of that to this sector and be a strong voice, I'm very happy to do that and use some of the mechanisms of government we've got to bring together dialogue across boundaries. That is hard to get going. As I mentioned that, you know, you speak to one minister and then something happens over here. I think just again to dump Paula in it, she's got the experience. You've been a minister before, haven't you? Yeah, she knows what she's doing. So you have somebody good in leadership here who might actually be able to help me navigate some of that to your benefit. Thank you.
Thanks, Minister.
Thank you for saying that.
So we've got time for one more question, but before we do, I just want to acknowledge you, Beck. Thank you for sharing that story. That was brave and courageous and really, really important that you said that. So thank you. And I feel like what you've done is elevate what's actually really going on out there. And these are the voices that we really need to. And while I agree with you, Minister, we all have some responsibility here. You're the one who gets to be a decision maker. So we can influence that decision making, but you get to be in the room.
Well, so, I need your help is what I'm saying. Yeah, I'm not saying I don't have responsibility. I absolutely take that on board and trying to articulate a way we can do it.
And I've heard from you a commitment to actually continuing this conversation.
Absolutely.
I'm thinking with people like Beck, but also the Family and Sexual Violence Alliance. And I'm not sure if if Bree's in the room today. Yeah, really important conversation to
I'm
be.
a very pragmatic, practical, old Tassie person, and I really want to help, and I'll do my best.
Yeah, thank you. So one more question. Has anyone got a final question for the Minister? Wrap it up.
Early minute. Thank you so much. All right, come and tell me what we can do.
Thanks for your time today, Minister. So looks like we exhausted the questions, but if you think of any questions after this event that you want us to put to the Minister, just please email some questions or phone one of the TasCOSS teams, and we'll be really happy to put those questions to the Minister. So now you'll appreciate, I'm sure, that the budget papers are quite voluminous. So we haven't been able to include every measure in today's presentation. But if there's anything you would like us to look into further, please reach out to our policy team members who are in the room today. So Todd, Stephen and Alexandra, they'd be more than happy to answer any questions. Later on today, we'll also send around a written analysis. This will include a recording of today's session along with the slides. And on Tuesday, we'll be joined by Professor Richard Eccleston and Dr. Robert Hortle on a free online policy conversation to unpack the budget further. Before we close, I'd also like just to give a quick plug for our Changemaker Masterclass series, which is now taking registrations. And next month, TasCOSS is hosting AI for Community Service Leaders, which is a practical masterclass designed specifically for Tasmanian community service leaders and staff working in complex resource-constrained environments. So if you're interested in that, Bronwyn's here today and other TasCOSS members could give you some more information. There's also some flyers outside on the table. So just in closing, I'd just really like again to acknowledge our members here today. Thank you for supporting Tasmanians and for your tireless advocacy on their behalf. Thanks again to the TasCOSS board and team and to everyone else who joined us in the room and online. Now, this is the part where I would normally say, look forward to seeing you at an upcoming event or at the budget briefing next year. And I might actually be at the budget briefing next year, but I'll be down there and not up here because today, as I think we've already said, is my last day at TasCOSS. Over the 6 years, I've had the opportunity to work with so many of you here in the room today and beyond and in the virtual room. I've heard about the work you do, the impact you have and the difference you make, and it has been an absolute privilege to be trusted with the TasCOSS voice and to use that voice to advocate with government, to influence decision makers and to try to create a Tasmania that is fairer, kinder and more equitable. I'm really proud of some of the achievements that we've had together over the last 6 years, but I'm mostly proud of the relationships that I've built with all of you and the connections we've had. So while today's budget conversation discussion really focuses on the challenges ahead and the investments still needed, I really do leave this role genuinely with enormous confidence in the strength of this industry, the power of this industry, and the value that you have right across the community. And I really would welcome you all. We're going to have some knockoff drinks tonight at 4 o'clock. So I would love you all to come and join us at 4 o'clock up at Hadley's. Everyone's welcome. Just feel free to drop in for a short time or a long time if you want. We'd love to. I'd love to have a drink with you all. So don't rush off now. There's an opportunity to stay and to mingle. I'm sure Paula would love to chat to some of our members, but enjoy the tea and coffee. And yeah, thanks so much for coming.